Hi there, welcome back to Board Game Specialists. We are on episode 47, and I am Carla.
And I'm Melanie.
And today we're going to talk about our top 9 stocking stuffers that we could shove in a decent sized stocking. They have to be small, but not too small. But before we do that, let's talk about some games we've been playing. Mel, what about you? What have you been playing?
Well, we had an all-day game night on Sunday. So you and Ashley and Cherry all came over to my house and we played game the whole day, and then that was amazing. And I also had a game night, like an impromptu pizza party game night on the Wednesday that same week. So I got to play lots this week. One that we got to play on Sunday that I had purchased recently, I hadn't played it yet and I wanted to, is Alma Mater. And that was really neat. I really enjoyed that. First of all, components, like those little plastic book components that you play with are just freaking adorable.
Yeah. That's
and it's kind of like the resource of the game. So it's a worker placement where you're running a university and you're going to hire professors to do lectures, and you got to select like different books. You kind of have to dedicate different amount of books to kind of, I guess, pay for them. And the first player that goes and buys that particular professor gets to set which book they're going to use. And each player has their own sets of books. So there's like the black book, the green book, I forget all the colors that there was. I can't remember what color my book was. Oh, I was red. Yeah. And then there's a green one as well. But then there's also like the dictionaries, and those are like the yellow book, and they're like the games book, so they're a little bit more difficult to come by. So they're a little bit more valuable, I guess. And so you can purchase books from other players. There's different ways that you can purchase books as well, but they're going to use these books to acquire the professors. And then you can also acquire students or recruit students, and then they're going to cost books as well. The whole thing, honestly, was great. There's a lot going on to it, so it's definitely not like an entry-level game. I can't remember how long it took us to play that game. I think it has maybe was it like a couple hours maybe?
Oh yeah, for sure, 2, I think.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more involved of a game,
yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's a super complex game.
No, I would say medium heavy, probably.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed that one. And then on Wednesday, I played Shadows Amsterdam. And that game was great. I bought it a while ago. I bought it completely blind. I had never heard of it. After I had purchased it, somebody said, "Oh, that one was really good." So I was excited to play it, and I watched a tutorial on it. But this is like Codename meets Dixit, basically. You have a map that has all bunch of different images, Dixit type images on this map. And everybody starts in the middle, and it's a team versus team. So you have 2 teams, and like the story behind it is you're trying to maneuver around this map to locate 3 clues. And then once you found the 3 clues, go to your clients to give them the information you got. Because basically, I guess there's a crime that happened. The police aren't successful in their investigation, so you're hired on as a private investigator. But 2 teams got hired on. So you're trying to be the first one to get all the clues and bring it to your client. I mean, the theme is very pasted on, but it works. So both teams starts in the middle, and this is real time. So both teams are playing at the exact same time, which takes a lot of that analysis paralysis that can happen. Kind of like, okay, what's the best picture to kind of and what will happen is you'll have the lead investigator on each team. They have a map of where the clues are. Some clues is only for the one team. Some clues is to whichever team gets there first gets that clue. But there's also a red X on this map, and those are where the police officers are, and you're trying to stay out of their way because they'll stop you. And if you come across the police officer 3 times, the other team wins instantly. So then you're kind of have the map, and then they're going to decide where they're trying to send you, and they're trying to send you towards the clue. So it'll be like, okay, well, based on the map, I want you to go to this image. And it's an image of a chef in the kitchen or something wonky like that. So, and then you have images on the table that's accessible to both team. And I'm going to pick a picture to give to my team to try to get them to go to that location. Now,
so that has to match the location, kind of?
Well, this is where like it's more like Mysterium, I guess, because I'm gonna give you a picture trying to get you to think of this picture. So maybe I was like, oh well, this one is a cake, this is a kitchen. I'm gonna give him a picture of a cake, hoping they see kitchen. But maybe the cake is yellow, and then the picture around is yellow as well, and you end up going the wrong way. And this is what happened when we played, because we were me, my sister, and Glenda. And Glenda was like, oh, I bet you she's thinking this. And every time Glenda was correct and my sister talked her out of it. Like, every time. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. But, and then like they go the wrong way, let's say. But when they do, now you got to try to send them from where you're at. So you could decide to go for a different clue or different things, right? It's neat. This game was so cool. Now, because you would go one space away, you would give them one picture. So there's like only 3 to 6 possibilities depending on where you're located when you're giving one clue away. Or you can try to send them 2 spaces away. And for that, you're going to give them 2 pictures. And that's a hint. I'm sending you 2 spaces away. But now there's a lot more, a lot more different location that I could be trying to send you to. It was so cool. This game was so fun. I was super impressed with it.
Did you play with 4 people or 6?
2 teams. So minimum 4.
2? Oh, okay. And did you play with 4?
We were 6 when we played.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, we did guys against girls.
Yeah.
But we won the second round. The first round we lost because we hit the police officer 3 times. Because Ginny kept going the opposite way. But yeah, it's so neat. So like both game nights and game day was amazing. These are the 2 games I was going to talk about. How about you, Carla? What did you get to play?
So another one we played that day was In the Hall of the Mountain King. And this was one I had just bought at KefCon. And so I had tried it just solo, not the solo variant, just like a 2-handed game, just tricky to do in this type of game. But we played it 2v2 because there's like a team variant, which was interesting. So you would share your storage together. So what I mean by that is you have you're all trolls and you're trying to dig through this tunnel because this mountain has collapsed where you all lived. So you're trying to dig into the tunnel to build the best shrines and like, what were those things called? The big ones we'd place on them? No, I can't remember.
The temples or what was it?
They weren't temples, but yeah, something like that. Anyway, so you're trying to dig through this tunnel, set up workshops in your tunnel so that you can use them to trade resources and build these pillars. Yeah, they were pillars, right? On top, which would give you more points at the end of the game. But you'd kind of try to get to the middle because there's bigger points as you would go to the middle. But you'd also want to connect with each other, like on your same team, because then you can use each other's workshops. So it was quite neat because it's a polyomino game at its core, I guess, but there's so much going on as well. So you have these starting 4 trolls, and you get these starting resources, and then you have them all lined up, and then you can recruit a troll, and you'll put that card on top of 2 of the other ones, and then you will get to activate all those cards below it. So it's kind of like you're building up a pyramid, and once you get that last card on top, you get to activate all the cards down below. But that does trigger game end, and you only have 2 rounds left after 2 people have gotten their 10th card. So the resources are quite neat because they're on your cards. You can use personally your own resources that are on your trolls and in your storage that you guys share, but your teammate can't use the ones that are on your trolls. So you're trying to get those off or to use up those ones first. And you need the resources to dig because to dig a tunnel is to grab a polyomino tile and connect it to your previous other tiles. And so it's kind of really interesting because at the same time you're trying to unearth these statues that are all over the board, and you won't be able to move them unless you have unearthed them by putting one of your tiles down and on top of it, because then it'll land on top of your tile and you'll be able to move it and put it onto an altar, which will give you big points. It's so different than what I've ever played. It's like not really area control, but a little bit, because you can never touch anybody else's tunnel. You can kind of be smack up against workshops together, but you can't touch their tunnels only diagonally. You can't orthogonally touch them. So, there's a bit of like trying to like build up to the middle, and you're not really blocking anyone because you're kind of going your own ways. But it's so interesting, and the cascading effect of the resources when you're building these trolls or hiring these trolls is really neat. You can also cast spells at the beginning of your turn, which gives you kind of a better ability. Might let you dig twice or let you refill one of your trolls or something like that. But it was fun. It was neat to play a team player one. Mm-hmm. Really cool. Another one that I got played earlier in the week was Shobu. Now, I had gotten you to purchase this from one of your orders.
Yes, from the Gamers Table.
Yeah, the Gamers Table. That was on sale. And I had wanted this for a while. It was kind of, other than this sale, it was an expensive game for what it is. Mm-hmm. You could literally make this game because it's rocks. It comes with 2 colors of rocks, black and white. And then you have these 4 wooden boards. And you line up your yeah, that's it. And a rope that goes in the middle. So it's very rustic looking, but very earthy, but it's really neat and easy to learn. You can learn it in 30 seconds. So you line up your color of rocks on the edge of all the boards facing you, because you'll have them in like a quadrant. So there'll be 4 boards. So you put your rocks on your side and the other person will put theirs on their side of each of the boards. And all you're trying to do is knock off someone's rocks on all of their rocks off of one board. And so what you do is you have a passive movement, so you can move one of your rocks on your side, because you'll have a light board and a dark board on your side, and they'll have a light and a dark board on their side. And so you can move it up to 2 spots, like straight, diagonal, however you want. Your passive movement, you can't touch another rock. But then, however you have moved your passive movement on another board of a different color, you will move another one of your rocks that same pattern. So that's the one where you want to knock rocks off. And it doesn't really sound like much, but it's very interesting. It's very chess-like and just really neat how you can go back and forth trying to kick each other's rocks off. And then, you're going over here on this board, and then you go to this board, and then you look and you're like, oh, they already got 3 of my 4 rocks off. Now I have to do something about it. But it's pretty neat. It's a 5-10 minute game. So you always play like at least 3. But that was about it. We did get a few other games played on our game day. We played some lighter Christmas lights one. That was fun. Yeah. We played, what else did we play? Kites, that real-time game. I think I might have talked about that one already.
Green Team Wins.
Oh yeah, Green Team Wins with the gamer card version. That was fun.
Arch Ravels as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Arch Ravels we played. Oh, we played a game throughout the whole day called Don't Get Got. So this is when
I got got every time.
Me too. This is when you play like throughout the day or throughout a weekend, where you just have these little cards and you get a whole bunch of things that you slide into these cards, and you have to get others to do these things. And once you do, you can see you've got and you flipped it over, and you just have to get 3 out of the 6, and then you win. Yeah.
That was funny. Like I had one where it's toss something to another person and have them grab it, and Ashley's sitting in front of me, and I tossed her 4 things, and she like just got hit by them almost every time before she finally caught one. I was like, dear God.
Well, I had to win a rock, paper, scissors just once, and I must have played about 12 times getting you guys to play rock, paper, scissors.
Like, okay, we're going to decide first play by rock, paper, scissors. And we're like, okay. That's weird.
Rock, paper, scissors. But I literally could not win. think I tried 12 times. I'm like,
That was
seriously,
funny.
not one time.
It was interesting to
fun.
have that side game in the middle of the
it's just something
game
you can
day.
play
So
throughout
yeah, it
the
was
day.
neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. But anyway, let's get into our stocking stuffers.
Yeah.
So, any honorable mentions for you?
I do. You know what? So I kept my stocking stuffers to games. And I kept them small. Like the stockings I had for the kids, we got new ones this year, but the stockings I had for the kids were tiny.
Oh,
like,
really?
so they were like maybe 4 inches wide, maybe. Like, so they were very small. So I kind of kept games that would probably fit in that one. Now we have slightly bigger stockings now, but I've kept my game list on small games. But my honorable mentions is other things I'd like to put in a gamer stocking that's not necessarily games. Set of dice. And actually one thing I saw too is Geeky Goodies has Meeple coasters.
Oh, yes. I've seen those. They're so cute.
They look so cool. I was like, oh, that would be so neat. And then, I didn't buy them because I didn't want to give them away. And I knew I would keep them if I did. So I'll look after Christmas when I can buy for me again. But so I think those kind of things, because sometimes buying games for a gamer is really difficult. You don't know what necessarily they have. Or if you know them really well, then you do. But I think something like this would be great to kind of put in a stocking stuffer. But I kept my list to games.
Yeah,
How about
that's a
you?
good
Do you
idea.
have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I have a couple, but back to the dice part. I was at a game night with some friends who are not gamers, but they do like, card games and whatnot. And actually, we'd went away for a weekend. We went hiking and played some card games, and they were like, "Oh, shoot, I wish we had some dice." And I'm like, "Well, I have dice in my purse." And they're like, "What? Why do you carry dice in your purse?" I'm
Who
like,
doesn't?
"What? Who doesn't carry dice?" Like, and
I
I'm
have
not a
6
role-
dice
like
on
an
me all the
RPGer.
time.
I just carry them for like, a game of 10,000 or something.
Yeah.
But they were just like, what the heck? And the whole joke the whole weekend was, oh, we need a satchel of dice now, like Carla. But yeah, so that was funny when you said putting some. And I had said to them, I'm getting you all a little box of dice to keep in your purse. But
Yeah.
I just have a couple honorable mentions. One of them is a little game that missed my list. It's called Bandido. And this is one that is a cooperative game, and it's really small, so it fits perfect in the stocking, but it takes up lots of room when you're playing the game. And this is where you're building this tunnel out to try and... you're trying to block the Bandido in. They're trying to escape, and you want to make sure you close off all the exits so that he can't escape. And it sounds easy. You can play it on BGA if you want to try it, but it's quite a tricky game, and it's not something you win all the time, but it's fun. Another one that missed my list, it would have been, I've probably talked about this so much at the beginning of the year because I would have played this last year a lot, but it hasn't hit my table a lot. It's called Silver and Gold. And this one's just a little tiny box, and it's a little roll and write, but it's so neat. It has these little dry erase cards that you can write on, and you're just marking off just these little polyomino shapes with X's and trying to complete these cards. And some of the cards will give points for other cards, and you're going to cross off these little stars, I think it is. No, I haven't played it for so long to get these
Palm trees and
trophies.
coins. And
Is it
then there's
coins?
an
Yeah,
X.
it's coins.
Yeah.
And it's just a neat, really cool game, but it just missed my list.
That's a good
But
one.
now let's hear what your number 9 is for.
Perfect.
top
So my
stocking
number
stuffers.
9, you know what? And a lot of the games that I've picked, I'll just kind of say that now, is like a series. So I've picked one game in that series, but that whole series would work. So my number 9 is Timeline. So I've picked Timeline Invention, but there's Timeline Event, Timeline Canada. There's a bunch of different timelines that you could do. And this comes in a little circle tin. They're tiny little cards. It is published in 2010. It's created by Frédéric Henry, and it's published by Asmodee. And this one, it's a super simple game. So you put, I believe it's 5 cards in front of you. And you put them face down, which still has the image of what the invention is, but it doesn't tell you what the date of when it was invented. And you're going to have one, like a line up in the middle, and you're going to flip one over that has the date. So it could be like the toothbrush tube was invented in whatever year that was invented. Then you have to look at the cards in front of you, and you're going to add it to the timeline. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure the wheel was invented much before the toothpaste tube. So I'll put that at an earlier timeline. So in the beginning, it's easy to get your things in. And if you're correct, then that's good. Now you're down to 4. If you're incorrect, then you fix the timeline and you have to draw another card. And it's the first player to get rid of all of their cards correctly in this timeline that wins the game. It's simple, but it's fun. And it's one of those that if you played it again and again and again and again, you would start recognizing where things would fit. But, you know, if you have a couple different versions, you can kind of switch it up, and then it wouldn't be quite so easy. Or you wouldn't kind of remember it as much. But then also, we pull it out a couple times a year. You don't really remember then at that point. So keeps it fresh anyways. But it's a neat, interesting game. This is one that we bring at restaurant when we're waiting for our food to come, because it's a very simple, it doesn't take that much space to play on a small table. So that's my number 9, Timeline Invention.
Yeah, good choice. That goes well with lots of different age groups too, because it's nice. Some can have their input from different years. It's really good.
Yeah.
My number 9 is 10. And this is made in 2021 by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Sean Stankovich. So this one is a push your luck game that was, I think it came out in 2021 last year. And this was my kind of Christmas game last year that I would bring out quite a bit during the holidays. And everyone seemed to love it. It's a neat one because all you're doing is flipping cards and you're just trying not to bust. And how you would bust is if you go over 10 by the number cards, or you also have these currency cards that you could bust if those go over 10. The neat thing is though, as you're flipping the number cards and say you're up to 6 and then you flip a currency card, that brings you back down. So then you're like, it'll bring you back down to however many the currency was on there. And then if you want to stop, you can take the number cards, all of them there, and whatever currency is there, everybody else gets that. So they get these little black coins kind of thing. And that's what you use to bid on different cards, because some wild cards will come up in the flips and those just get auctioned off. So they're always like a wild color or a wild number or something. And what you're trying to do is make a set collection of, there's I think 4 different suits, and you're trying to build from 1 to 10. And so as long as you can get as much of a set in each color as possible, then you get to count them all. So if you have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, each of those will give you 1 point. If you can make it only goes up to 9, but if you can make 1 to 9, that'll give you an extra point because you have a full set. So you're just trying to make these sets, but it's so interesting as you're building up your sets and then you take your cards. The other thing you can do is buy from this market to fill in your cards. And you can see what people need. So you might need to take those so that they don't end up in the market, because someone might need like a 5 to stick right in the middle of their set, which would give them 10 points. It's a real simple concept, but a really neat one. And that's my number 9, 10.
That's good. It's funny, as you kind of said it, I was like, oh, I've played this. I can picture it. Like, I can picture it, but for some reason I couldn't remember till you started talking about it. I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, do I own this? I think I own this. I checked. I don't.
I think you played it with Michael or something last year.
Yeah, I did. I played it with Michael. I did horrible. It was it was so bad. I busted it all. Anyways, I don't know how I managed to score as low as I did, but it was hilarious. That's a good one, though. It's a neat game. Okay, my number 8. I picked Dig from the Packo games, but it could be any games from that series, and these are by far the smallest game on my list. They're the size of a small pack of game, like so 1/2 inch by 1/4 inch. Like it is small. And you have these long, skinny cards that you would be playing with. And the Dig one was published in 2017. It's created by Chris Handy, and it's published by Perplexed. And this particular one, first of all, it's cute. You have these different dogs that you're playing as, And so you kind of pick the dog you want to be. And then you have the dog house, and then you have all the cards that you put in a row. And then a few of them are going to be the dog dish bowl. So, and they're all different colors. So you're going to move your dog, and you can move so many spaces, but for every bone you're carrying with you, you can move, like it impedes you, so you can't move as far. So if you have three bones in your mouth, this is the most you can have. You can only move by one space. But if you have none, then you can move by 4 space or whatever that it is. But you're going to move a certain location, and then once you get to that location, you're going to flip that card over, and it's going to reveal a bone. Now, on the back of the card, it's going to show you this is probably going to be either a yellow bone or a purple bone. Say, okay, well, I'm going to go there, and you flip it over, and it's a yellow or purple bone, and you will add that to you. Now you're carrying this bone until you make it to the dish of that bone, and you can drop that bone into that dish, and then it goes into your collected bones. And what's going to happen is every time you collect a card, it's going to create a gap, and you take the card that's at the end of the row and you fill the gap. And because you're doing this, eventually the order of the bowls are going to get mixed up, and depending on the order that it is, the value of the bones that you're collecting change. So if you have, like, and I can't remember if it's closest is worth more and furthest is worth more, like which way it is, but 1 bone's going to be worth 1, and then 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. So maybe you're like, okay, great, I'm collecting a lot of green bowls, and that's great. But then all of a sudden the green bowl gets moved, and it's only worth 1, and it was worth 4 points. Like, oh, darn it. I was like, okay, maybe I should get more blue bones, because maybe that's going to be. So the whole concept is so interesting, because you're kind of trying to say, okay, I'm going to go pick up. I don't really want a yellow bone, and that looks like it might be yellow or red, but I want to move my bowl over so that it's going to be worth more because I've got a lot of these bones. So neat. Very simple. And like I said, this game is a tiny nothing game, but it was neat and it was fun to play. So that's my number 8, Dig.
Nice. And that's tiny. You could fit a whole about 10 of those games in a stocking at least.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think
small.
there's 18 different one total. I have all 18s. But yeah, you could put the whole thing in a stocking for sure.
Neat. All right, my number 8 is Kites, and this was a game we had played on the weekend. This was made in 2022 by Kevin Hamano. This one is a real-time game, and you are just trying to keep your kites up in the air. And what is representing the kites are these sand timers. And so they're all different colors, and they have all different times on them. So like a 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, I believe. The ones that have the longer time, there's less of those cards. The ones that are like the 30-second, they have tons of those cards that are in the deck. So you have different cards. You'll have like a card with a single color or a card with a double color. And double color will have 2 different colors on it. So all you're doing on your turn is playing a card. And whatever color you play, you will flip that timer. So at the beginning of the game, all you will do is, like, the timers will all be laying on their side. You will flip it so it'll start running. And then the next player goes. So the first couple rounds are quite easy because you're just getting the timers up in the air, or the kites up in the air. And then as it comes back around, you have to look and see what needs to be flipped. And you don't want any of the sand to run out. You want it to keep it all up. So we did one game of this, and we totally won. And then we added in there's some tricky cards. So there's a card a storm card that makes you flip all the timers at once. So whether they need to be flipped or not, they all have to get flipped. There's another card that makes you have to pass a card to your left, so just kind of waste some time. And then there's another card that makes you not being able to talk. And you really have to talk throughout this game because it's quite, especially when there's 4 people, you can't all see all the timers. We tried to kind of spread them out so that everybody could see everything, but we'll be like, okay, red needs to be done. And then, next 2 people don't have a red card, so we're trying to move really fast to get to the other person. And it's quite interesting, and I had played this with a couple other friends, and they quite liked it too. But yeah, that's my number 8, Kites.
Yeah, Kite was neat for sure. It's like It's a different type of game. Like, there's really isn't much that compares to it where you're trying to get it before the time runs out. I mean, I guess maybe Magic Maze, because you're trying to go through the whole thing before that. But that's only the one timer, not all of them, right? So, yeah, no, that was neat for sure. Perfect. So my number 7 is Cover Your Assets. And this one is from the Grandpa Beck series. So really any of the Grandpa Beck's game in here would apply. And I picked the Cover Your Assets. This one was published in 2011. It's created by Brent and Jeffrey Beck. And it's published by Grandpa Beck's game. Gotta say, this one is probably one of the second largest game I have on my list. It would fit my tiny stocking like just. So... because it's bigger cards. They're not like the regular card. It's not the tiny card. You kind of have a nice size card that you're playing. But Cover Your Assets, what's really neat about it is now a fair bit of take that with this one. So if you're playing with kids that kind of siblings that get at each other's throat easily, they may not be enjoying this one too much. But so on your turn, you can play a pair on your stack, or you can draw from the middle and play. Or no, you can draw from the middle to play on your stack, or you can just draw a card, or you can discard a card to draw back, or something like that. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get sets of assets and put them on your stack. And when you're going to play another one, you're going to cover the existing asset, but you're going to stagger between like sideways and up and down and sideways and up and down and so on. So you can kind of see the different stacks. You can use, let's say somebody put... what was one of the assets? A car, I think it was. So they've played a pack, a set of 2 cars that's worth so much money. And if you have a car in your hand, you can play to steal that stack. Now, you're not stealing all of them. You're just stealing that particular asset. That's the car. So it'd be like you would challenge them, say, okay, I want that car. So they can challenge you back and play a car of their own. Say, nope, I'm keeping that car. Or if they have a gold or a silver card, those are wild, so they could play that. Says, nope, I'm keeping that because with my gold. And they'd be like, yeah, well, I have a gold of my own, so I want it. And it's like, nope, sorry, I'm going to use my silver. And then you're out of cards. So all the cards that went in this back and forth gets added up and get added to that asset. Doesn't stack, like it doesn't shift yet. It's just added to that particular asset. And I was like, this is a really attractive set now. Like, I'm going to try to go for it again. Or the other players are going to try to go for it again, right? You can never steal somebody's asset if it's their only assets in their stack. So you can't take, but you're trying to do this, build your, so if you have a really big stack like that, so you have all these cars that you've accumulated, and now this stack is worth a lot of money, you're going to want to try to play an asset that's going to stagger so that it protects the one that's underneath. Because now they can't steal what's underneath. They'd have to take what's above first. So it kind of starts protecting the assets that you have underneath. Hence, cover your assets. And you're playing like this until you run out of cards. And then you tally up, and whoever has the most value in their stack is the winner. This is a simple game. Very simple, but it's so satisfying. And it's so fun to play. I really, really like this one. Like I said, this could be any other game from the Grandpa Beck series. I own a few other ones. I like them all. My goal is to kind of have the whole series, I think, at one point. But that's my number 7, Cover Your Assets.
Yeah, this is a really good one. I like it. I have it actually out on my queue line where I want to play that soon. So I'm hoping at Christmas. I played it with my kids before and they really liked it. So hopefully we'll get that out at Christmas. All right, my number 7 is Enchanted Plumes. This is made in 2021 by Brendan Hansen. Now this one is a card game, and it's so beautiful. You are just building up a peacock, basically. And how you do that is you start with a hand of cards, and you want to start you start at the top of the peacock, so all the feathers, and then you're going to work down to like the body, basically. And so there's all different suits, which are the feathers, different colors. And so you're going to, on your turn, play 1 or 2 cards, and you will play them into these, like, on your tableau. And so you will start one of your peacocks. You could start 2 if you want at the same time, but if you put two in one, you will try to put your lowest numbers possible at the top, because that top row is all going to be worth negative points. So you don't want to put high numbers up there, because then you have to subtract those after. So you're going to play two, and then you can either pick up two cards from the deck just blindly, or there's this market of cards that you can trade with. So you can take a card out of your hand and trade it with one in the market. And so that'll end your turn, and then the next player will go. And you just go until you finish the whole deck. But it does take a little while, because people are trading with the market, so that doesn't make the cards go down that fast. But it sounds very simple, but it is a little bit tricky, because you're really trying to get those low cards. And then the other thing is, when you make your first row, whatever colors are in that first row are the only colors you can use in your second row. So you don't want to have a whole bunch of the same color, because then that really limits you for your next row. So you want to have a bunch of different colors, so that your next row, which will be less cards, because it's like you're making it basically a reverse pyramid, you will want to use higher cards, but still use as multiple colors as possible. So it makes it easier to build up right to the end. And then once you get that final card that is finishes your peacock, you get to flip that over. And at the end of the game, so you will have built up all these different peacocks, and you have to decide, do I want to make one big one, or like a medium one and a bunch of small ones? But at the end, when you're counting your points, if you've completed, each completed peacock will double the points. So you really want to complete them. So you may not want to do a big, huge one, but it's really, you go back and forth in your mind. Okay, I can do it. I can build this big one. And then as you go, you have all these colors, and people are taking the colors because they know you need them, and they're high numbers, and then you're left with nothing, and you can't finish off your peacock. So it's quite thinky, but it's fun, and just like one of those chill games, but really cool. And that's my number 7, Enchanted Plumes.
So I've never played this one, but I've seen it, and it looks beautiful, and I do want to play it. I didn't realize it was like, for some reason, I always pictured you started from the one and you grew out, but that makes more sense that you start from the, interesting. Yeah. Perfect. So my number 6 is Chrononaughts, and this one was published in 2000, so I think this is by far the oldest one I have in my list. And it's created by Andrew Looney, and it was published by Looney Labs. And this one is really interesting, and I kind of picked this one to be like my more gamey game of the list. So it's a little bit more of a substantial game. But it's a small card game, and what will happen is you're going to put all the cards in order, and it's in chronological.
Chronological?
That did not come out right. So it's in that time order, starting with like the oldest events and kind of going with more recent events. And what happens is you are a time traveler. There's certain artifacts that you're trying to collect, and then you got to go back into your own time. But each time traveler is from a certain dimension. So it will kind of have a list of like, your time is from when President Lincoln wasn't assassinated, but this did happen. So you got to try to change the event in history so that it creates the timeline you're from, so you can travel back home after you've collected the artifacts you needed to collect. And then it's going to have ripple effects as well. So it's like, okay, great. Well, Lincoln was saved. He didn't get assassinated, but then that changed this course of event, and then which changed this course of event. And then you got to go and flip those cards over. And could be like, oh, great. Now you've changed this. This doesn't fit from my era anymore. So I got to go and try to change this one so I can go back in time as well. So it is so interesting as to the thing. And then some of the stuff will create paradox in the universe, and then you have to fix those, and kind of there's different ways that you can fix. Either you flip a card back, or you kind of do like a patch to fix the ripple that you've created, the ripple that you've created in the timeline and stuff. But so it's really interesting. And then there's different cards that you can do that will allow you to kind of steal the artifacts from other players and so on. I remember I played with my friend one time and she played a card that made it so my parents never met and I ceased to exist. And I had to draw a new character card and kind of start over with a new character. It was so funny. Like it's a neat game. Like it's just like you take your turn, flip cards, like, and you'll have cards that'll help you kind of do that. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to play this so I can flip this card, and I'm going to play that so I'm affecting this, and it's all like different event you'll recognize throughout history. Some are mundane, some are like more bigger events, but then it's going to have like that ripple effect that kind of changes things. It's interesting. That's my number 6, Chrononaughts.
Yeah, I've never heard of this one, but that does sound quite interesting. All right, my number 6 is Scout, made in 2019 by Kai Kajino, and I've talked about this several times. This is probably my favorite ladder climbing game, I would say. It's unique in a way that the cards have numbers on top and the bottom, and they're different numbers. So you get your hand of cards, and you cannot flip them, you cannot order them. So you take your cards and you look at them and you go, okay, do I want this side or do I want to completely flip them? Because you can see what the bottom numbers are. And what you want them to do is you want to have sets and runs that are already made once you just pick up your cards. And how you play is just like a normal ladder climbing game. Someone will start with possibly one card, and then the next player will have to beat that card. Now, if they can't beat that card or set of cards, they can scout. So they can take one of the cards from the outside. So if you had 3 cards, they could take one of the outer ones. And they can put it anywhere in their hand. So it could make them like a really neat set or a really neat run. And then they can, one time per round, they could also play right away. If they chose not to play, then that would just be the next player's turn, and they will just try and beat the card that is the last winning card that is up on the table. It sounds so simple, but it's such a neat game. And if you do scout, that person gets a point that you have scouted from. And at the end of the round, when somebody goes out, however many cards you have claimed, meaning when you beat a card, you get to take that into your scoring pile. So however many of those you have and the points from people scouting from you, minus the cards that are still in your hand, that's the points you have. And you just play rounds that equal the player count. And you can even play this as a 2-player. We've played it and it's actually pretty good, but it does work better with more people. But it's just a really neat ladder climbing game. And that's my number 6, Scout.
Yeah, that one's neat for sure. My number 5 is Bag of Chips, and this one was published in 2021. It's created by Mathieu Auvert and Théo Rivière, and it's published by Asmodee. It's funny, Théo Rivière, the first time I saw this, was like, that sounds familiar. Why do I know this name? It's because we're Instagram friends, and I didn't realize he was a game designer at the time when we became. But yeah, so this one is neat. Like, I gotta say, this one I first saw it at Walmart. I walked by it many times. I looked at it. I picked it up, and I kind of I don't know, and I left it there. Until a friend of mine was like, okay, this game was amazing. And I'm like, are you for real? And somebody else was like, I've been looking for a copy. And I was like, I got to go back to Walmart. So then Cherry ended up finding it. And I'm like, please grab it for me. So, and it's really interesting. So you have, because, I think the ramen game is from the same makers and stuff. So it's just like, it's a game that looks like the food that it's packaged in. So you have this bag, you have all these cardboard pieces that are in shape of chips, and that goes in there. And then you have cards, and I can't remember how many you start with, but you're going to have 4 rounds, and you have 4 cards for each round. So on the first round, you're going to pull out, I think it's like 6 chips from the bag, and you're going to put them on that card. And now you're like, okay, so this is how many chips are out, and these are how many different type of chips they're out. Now, there's a lot more kind of plain chips in there than there are chicken barbecue or roasted chicken chips or something like that. So there's different flavors, and there's not the same amount of each one. So there's some more rare than others. Then so you say, okay, great. So this is how many chips there are. And you look at your cards and now you're going to discard, I think it's 3. You discard 3 cards that you don't think you're going to get to score. And each card has a condition on it. So it could be like if there's the same amount of plain chip as vinegar chips, you would score 40 points, let's say. Could be like if there's one of each chips that gets revealed, then you will score 1 point. That's probably fairly easy to get, but 1 point, it's a pathetic score. So you're going to kind of decide which one you're not going to bother trying to get. Now, it could be that it'd be like, okay, if there is 0 barbecue chips, you would score 60 points, but there's 2 barbecue chips out already. You know you can discard that one. You're not going to be able to make this one work. So you do that. Then they're going to draw more chips and pull more chips on the second level. And then you're going to go again and you're going to discard 2 more cards. So you do that, or 3, whatever it is. Then in the third round, now, you discard 1 more card, more chips gets revealed. So you're starting to get a little bit more information. And then you go into the final round. So in the final round, you have 3 cards left in your hand. All the cards you've been discarding so far have been discarded in front of you, face down. And there's arrows on them saying, okay, and arrows pointing like one way says, if these are resolved, you score the points. And then the other way is like, if these are resolved, you get negative points for them. So with the last 3 cards, you're going to put 2 on one side. That's like, okay, I'm hoping these are going to resolve so I can score these points. And you're going to put 1 face up on the other side, says, okay, I'm kind of hoping this one doesn't work out so I don't score anything. Because if it does work out, that's going to be negative points. And then you draw the last 2 chips. And you have to draw 1 at a time. Because some of the card is like, if the last chip drawn is a vinegar chip, you scored this many points. So you got to know which one is the last chip. So then you draw 2 more chips. And then you resolve what you had in front of you. So say, okay, well, this I was hoping would work out. It didn't, so it's a 0, so put it aside. Then I scored this one, which is 60 points. But this one I was hoping wouldn't work out, and it did. But it was only 10 points, so my score is 50. Then whoever has the highest points gets kind of the token for that round. And you do so many rounds until somebody wins. I don't know how many token it is, but it's a neat kind of push your luck almost, to be like, okay, well, I think there's a chance I could do this. So it's really interesting decisions that you're doing in it. It's a lot more fun than I thought it would be because I walked by that game so many times. And it plays quick. It's fairly simple to teach and play. It's just great. So that's my number 5, Bag of Chips.
Yeah, this one surprised me too. I didn't think, I kind of had walked by it as well at Wizard's Loft and I was like, I don't know. And then maybe I'll pick it up, next time or something. And then Cherry ended up winning one from the Dice Tower. So they sent her one. And then we played it. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. And all of a sudden she comes another day and she's like, here, have this. And I'm like, what? And she goes, they sent me 2. They sent her 1. And then like a week or 2 later, they sent her another one. I don't know, by mistake or what happened. But yeah, so we all have the bag of chips. It's fun. Mm-hmm. All right, my number 5 is called Inkling, made in 2021 by John Keyworth. Now, I'm not sure if I've talked about this one yet. I may have, but it's a word game. I would say kind of like a word party game. So what you do is you have this hand of cards, and they are letters, but they're kind of a bit abstract where you can use them as different letters. Like an E could be used as a W because it's like rounded instead of like square. Or it could be used as an M. And what you're trying to do is get across this, you each have this card that has a list of different words on it with different points. You're trying to get everybody to guess your word by making it with your letters. And everybody does it at the same time. So it sounds easy, but you want to you have 3 rounds, and on the card there's, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's about 7 or 8 words. So in 3 rounds, you want to try to get them to guess as many words as you can on there. So some rounds you may try to get them to guess 2 words at a time. And how you do that is like, there's really no rules. You just have to like move your letters around to maybe make different words, maybe do like a crossword, like one word across and then one kind of going off one of the letters. If you're trying to get two words, you can flip a card over and it could just be a blank because you have nothing that could make that letter, or you could just leave a blank. There's all kinds of different things, and some people are so creative with this because they can make like two W's or two E's into like no, I'm trying to think, what did they do? I don't know, but you can use these different shaped letters into different things. It's kind of like a creative word game, if that makes sense. And then at the end, all you do is you'll get points for words you've guessed right, and then you also get points for words that you have portrayed right and other people have guessed. So you just add those up, and then whoever has the most points wins. And it's really neat, and it's different. I've never played anything like that. You'd kind of need a bigger table because you will sprawl out like these words each round, and you will get more letter cards each round. So you have, by the end, you have a whole pile of cards to work with, and you can maybe make 2 or 3 words. It's really fun, and I like it. It's my number 5, Inkling.
Nice. My number 4 is Cutthroat Ninja. And this one was published in 2020. It's created by Ben McGill, and it was published by In the Den Games. And this one is on Amazon, so you can easily find it on Amazon. And they sent this one to me to try it out, and I was so impressed. And what's even better is the kids loved it. And it's really interesting. So you have these little ninjas. So you each a little ninja, and then you'll have like the bad guy of the round, and you'll kind of select how many bad guys you're going to go through, and then you're going to flip it over. And then depending on how bad they are, how much value you're going to get for defeating them. So one is like a crooked tax collector or something. So, and he's stealing money from all the villagers. So then if you defeat him, you would get a lot of reward for it or whatever, right? And each of the bad guys are worth a certain number of value. So you're trying to kind of build up your attack to be able to defeat him. And then when he's defeated, you get to claim him and you would get the reward. But all the other players are trying to do the same thing as well. And you're going to have your card, and there's like different things, and you'll have like a ninja that has like, it's a punch, or it's a kick, or it's a thing. So you're going to be playing, it's like, okay, I'm going to play a punch and it hits by this much. And then what's interesting is you're going to be playing your next card, and it kind of half covers, so you're creating like a lineup of cards, but you can steal cards from other players. It's like, oh, I see you're really good attack there, and I'm gonna actually play this card to steal it and put it in my attack. Now my attack value is at this much, so I'm almost there. And then so it was like, oh, and now that I have this really good attack, I'm gonna put a really small measly little punch that's only worth 1, so that you can't come, because you can't go and steal the cards that are deeper in your lineup. You got to take the ones that's at the end. And you can kind of create different combos. You can play the... I was so impressed with this one. It was so neat. Like I mentioned, the kids loved it. And it's just a small card game. Like it comes in a fairly thick deck of card, but that's it. It's all cards, and you kind of set it up. It's a lot of fun. And that's my number 4, Cutthroat Ninja.
Awesome. All right, my number 4 is the game Face to Face. Now, this is made by Stefan Bendorf in 2017. This guy, I have actually another game on this list from him. He does make a bunch of different, like, kind of roll and write or just like card games. He's made 21 Quicks, which is a real famous little tiny roll and write. But the first one he made out of this series was just the game. And all the game is you're just trying to play cards cooperatively to from 1 to 100 or 100 down to 1. And you're just trying to grow through the whole deck and see if you can get all the cards laid out. But with the game Face to Face, this is a 2-player version of it. And so what you're doing is the same thing, only you each have your own deck that you're playing out and trying to get rid of. But the cool thing is you can play on the other person's deck to bring them back down or back up again, which actually helps them, but it helps you get rid of your cards. So it's quite interesting because you have like two sides where you're trying to build, one up, one down. And it's just neat how you are just trying to get rid of your cards, but you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to help them here, but because it helps me get rid of a card and I get to draw more. But, you know, it gives them a real upper hand because then they can go further with their cards. It's such a neat thing. And the game, not the face-to-face, but the actual game one, I've played probably hundreds of times solo. It's just one of those games you could play in front of the TV and just like, you don't even really have to think about it. It's just like a solitaire game. But the 2-player game is really neat, and it's like a little duel back and forth. And that's my number 4, the game face-to-face.
Nice. My number 3 is Ohanami. It was published in 2019. It's the Stefan Bendorf game, and it's created by Appendosaurus Games. And this one is cool. So it's a slightly bigger card game because in there, like, the cards are side by side. So you got like the deck divided in 2, and you get the score pad as well. But it's fairly small enough that it would slip in a stocking, no problem. Artwork is super pretty because these are all like Asian style garden images. I don't know, it's like watercolors or something. And then you have the different colors, so the pink and the blues and the greens and the grays, and then you're trying to put this garden together. And it's a card drafting game. So you're going to start, I believe you have 10 cards in your hand, and you're going to draft 2 cards each round. And you're going to build up to 3 gardens. And what's going to happen is you're going to pick 2 cards and you're going to place them down in one of your garden. Now, the rule is you have to maintain numerical order. You can skip numbers, but you can't go back and add in between. And you got to stay where the numbers are going up or going down. And you can only add to the top or to the bottom of your garden. So be like, okay, well, I got a 47 and a 52. That's fairly close. I'll put them together. And then you pass the cards around and you get the next set of cards. So there'll be 8 cards now, and you'll pick 2 more. And then be like, great, there's 49. It would just fit in there so perfectly, but you can't push it in there now. You can only play above or below. So it's like, well, I guess I'll ignore that and hopefully I don't end up with it. And then it's like, oh, well, there's 100 and 102. That's pretty close. I'll put this one. And you keep doing that until you run out of cards, and then you do your first round of scoring. First round of scoring, you score just the blue cards. Then you're going to get 10 new cards, and you're going to start again and add to this existing garden you've already got. And you're going to add more cards to it. And then at the end of that round, you're going to score the blue cards and the green cards. Now, the blue cards have the least value, but they're going to score 3 times. While like the pink cards and the gray cards are worth the most technically, but you're only going to get to score them the 1 time at the end. So you're trying to get your blue cards in early if you can. And honestly, I never even think of that because I'm so caught up in maintaining the numerical order that I completely forget about colors. And Lee beats me almost every time because of it. But so, and you're doing this, and then at the end, like, if you can't fit something in, like, darn it, you can trash the card. But then you're like, got an entire card you're not scoring, and it's gonna hurt in the end. But so you do this until you do the 3 rounds, then you score all the cards again, and it's whoever has the highest score is the winner. This is such a neat game. It's so pretty to look at. It's such a simple game to play and learn, but it's so satisfying and a neat puzzle that you're doing as you're playing. And what's neat too is it doesn't have like take that or whatever. Like, you're building your own thing, they're building their own thing, you're competing, but you can't mess really with each other's. You can a little bit. It's like, oh, I notice he's got like a gap from 102 to 112, so I'm not gonna plant this 109 and I'll let him struggle with that, right? Like, so there's a little bit of that you can do, but other than that, like, it's just such a neat game. I really like this one. So that's my number 3, Ohanami.
Yes, good choice. My number 3 is Village Rails, made in 2022 by Matthew Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert. So this one's a rectangle box, but it's a little bit thicker, but it still fits in a stocking. It's one of those big games in a little box. And this one is so neat. This is a second of a series. The first one was called Village Green, and this one's Village Rails. This one is really neat because it's kind of like got that Sudoku type game where you're building up these different tracks, but you're doing a 4x3 grid. And so you have these starting tracks that, like, you'll have these starting pieces of cardboard, and you will place a card in one of the spots. And then that track will carry on until it ends at, like, one of the ends. And some of the cards will be, or some of the tracks will only be like 2 long, some will be like 5 long. But it's neat because there's all these different icons that are on each card, and some will score differently. Like some will multiply if you have a bunch of them. Some will just want a certain type of terrain on the card. Some will want, I think of some other ones there. I can't think right now, but there's all different types of scoring. But you can also score not just from those, but you have these trip cards. So you have to purchase those because each round you will get to place a rail card, but you have the option of purchasing a trip card, and that will multiply that route. It'll have a different type of scoring for that route. It might be the type of scoring that you're actually building on, and that'll multiply it. Then you also have these other cards. Now I can't remember what they're called. I want to say treats, but they're something, or tricks or something. They will give you money. And it is a different type of way to score as well, just giving you money, which you need to buy the trip cards. So it's really cool and really thinky, but just made like one of those big games, and they put it in this tiny small box. And it just feels like you're playing this tiny little Euro game that takes maybe half hour, I would say. But it's so fun. And I just received this. I've just been playing it solo. I haven't actually even played it with people yet. But it's just awesome. And I love it. It's called Village Rails, my number 3.
Nice. I don't think I've ever heard of this one. Mm-hmm. My number 2 is the largest game on my list. The tiny little stockings we used to have, this one probably would not quite fit. This is how small those stocking was. Regular stocking, this would fit no problem. And this is Abandon All Artichokes. It was published in 2020. It's created by Emma Larkins, and it's published by Game Right Games. And this one is a really interesting game, and it has really cutesy art on it. And you have all these vegetables with like eyes and outfits and stuff. And it's a deck building game, and you start your original deck with all artichoke cards. And an artichoke card does absolutely nothing. There's no action involved with them. It clutters up your hand. Then on your turn, you can draw a card, put it in your hand, then you can activate any card that you have in your hand. So at first you're going to draw a card from the market, and you're going to put it in your hand, and the only card you can activate is the one you just drew, because all the other ones are going to be artichokes and they do nothing. So then you're going to play the card, and it'll either allow you to take cards from another player, it'll allow you to swap out cards, or it'll allow you to compare a card with another player's card, and then whoever kind of what happened is one person would get the cards, the other persons would get the cards, or so on, or allows you to kind of compost your card, and you would get to discard it. And you're doing this each round until you start accumulating more different vegetable cards, and at the same time try to eliminate as many artichoke cards as you can, so you don't have as many cluttering your hand. And the winner is the first player to draw their 5 cards for their hand and have no artichoke. So if you've slimmed down your hand enough that you draw 5 cards and you don't have any artichokes in your hand, you win the game. It's really simple to play, but it's super neat. This was one that everybody was talking about, and I was like, okay, it looks cute, I want it, but I know absolutely nothing about it. But they kept talking about it, so obviously there's something there, and there really was. This is a neat game. Super simple, quick to play. I like this one a lot. So that's my number 2, Abandon All Artichokes.
That's my number 2 as well.
Oh, no way. That's hilarious.
Yeah, this one, it grows on you too as you play it. The first couple of times I played, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I just couldn't, probably because I was totally lost, and like, I just have all these artichokes stuck in my hand. But after a while, you're like, because at the beginning you kind of only use a few cards, and then you're like, I don't see what the point of all the other cards are. But as you go, you're like, oh yeah, they all have a purpose. Like this will do that and that'll do this to get to this. And it's really neat. Yeah, it's a very unique game. Yeah, that's also my number 2.
Good pick. All right, and my number 1 game is another crossover. And it's another one that I'm counting the series as well, and this is Scout. So Scout is from the Oink Games series, and the Oink games are all small box games that are neat. I only own one other one. I own Fake Artist Goes to New York. I've watched how to play it, but I haven't played it myself yet. But there is actually a lot of game in this series, and a lot of them look really interesting. Actually, you talked about the 9-Tile Panic. That one's on my wish list now. Any game in that series, I think, would be good and would fit in the stocking perfect. My pick, though, is Scout, published in 2019, created by Key Kadjo. I don't know how to say that. And published by Oink Games. And like you said, it's interesting because you play, and then it's like, you can play a single card, or you can play a run of 2, or you can play a pair, or you can play run of 3 or 3 of a kind, and so on, and everything can beat the other, and you can keep playing. So of course the cards are double-sided. You can't sort them, as you mentioned. You pick which side you want to play at the very beginning, but then you're playing what you got and you can't sort them. And if they're not in numerical order, you can't create a run with it. So on your turn, you're going to play cards that can beat the previous set that was played, if you can. If you can, you take what they've put it into your score pile, and then you've played what you could. The next player goes and then does the same thing. If you can't, you have the option to scout one of the cards. Now, you can only take a card that's from either end of what they've played. So if it was a run of 3, you could take the first or the last card. Then you can add that on either side and put them anywhere in your hand. So then it's like, great, I'm going to take this 6 because now I have a run of 3, and that's going to be a lot better than the run of 2 that I had. Or maybe it was creating a gap and you had no run at all. So then you kind of try to collect cards that's going to make your hand better, but then it gives them a point they can score at the end as well. And it keeps going until, if it's your turn to go and your card that you had played is still in front of you, that ends the round. Then you go on to the next round and you do the number of round of, depending on the number of players. Neat game. This one was one that was hard to find there for a while because it was so popular, everybody was getting it. My copy came from Essen. I had a friend go to Essen and picked it up for me, and that's where my copy came from. But it was a super cool game. Delt is another game that plays fairly similar that I think would fit this bill here quite well as well. But yeah, so that's my number 1, Scout.
Awesome. Good choice. My number 1 is another crossover.
Oh.
And that's Ohanami.
I
just love this game. I feel like it could have been called Zen because I could just play this and it just like calms me, and like I just feel so chill and relaxed when I play this game. But it's still like you're still trying to like watch the other people, like you said, and not, I'm not giving them that card or whatever, but it's just so pleasant to play. And it's such a simple concept too. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it has like these real unique mechanics, but it's just so fun. I just love it. And that's also my number 1.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's our top 9 stocking stuffers list. Now, before I forget, if you guys would like to chat with us on a platform, we are on Discord now. And so we've been chatting and sending in our actual pictures of our collections. Some of the other people have put them in too, but it's really neat. Mel puts a lot of comic strips in there that are some funny gamer quotes, and we just talk about games. It's really cool, but would love you to join and chat with us.
It's really neat to kind of have that back and forth chit chat with everybody.
It is.
Yeah.
Now our next week, which will be Boxing Day, we are going to talk about our top 9 Shelf of Shame games. And we had just kind of went through them to see what our numbers are at. And well, I'll let you all, I'll keep that as a surprise. Mine are a little bit less than Mel's.
I'm an overachiever.
Yeah. She definitely won that game. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And who knows? By then, we might have gotten quite a few off by then. We can.
I think I'm going to have added a lot more by then.
Yeah, that's
Let's
true.
be honest.
True. They keep coming in. I don't know how.
Just
Who's
do.
buying all these games?
The word gets out. This lady adopts board games. Go there.
Yeah. But the other thing we're going to be doing after that is there might be one more episode before this, but on our 50th episode, we are starting our top 50 games of all time. I've kind of started.
Can you believe we're almost on episode 50 already?
No, I can't. That's
wow,
crazy.
this just flew by.
Yeah.
And we've been at it for almost 50 weeks now.
Yeah, we haven't missed a week. We've done every single week.
Yeah.
And I still feel like we have thousands of topics to talk about.
We have still a long list of, this one, and this one. And we keep adding to it. So we're still really good.
Yeah, we got lots going. So yeah, that's what's coming up for our podcast in the future. But until next time, thanks for listening.
Bye.